Governor, Ag Secretary, University President, Chairman of the Board. But for Ed Schafer, 3 simple words summarize the only title he prefers.
I've introduced him to people, and they say, "Hello, good to meet you, Governor," and he says, "Call me Ed."
Call me Ed.
Just call me Ed. He does not want anybody to have a barrier to what they think of him by a title that he might have carried.
I had, shortly after he was confirmed as secretary, a number of political appointees as well as career USDA staff come to me and say, "We've got a problem, with Mr. Schafer." And I said, "What is the problem?" He said, "Well, he insists on being called Ed. We're used to Mr. Secretary or Secretary Schafer or something very formal." To this day, there are still folks that talk about how they miss going into a cabinet officer's office and being able to address him by his first name.
That kind of leadership took Ed Schafer far, to the halls of the North Dakota Capitol.
He'd say, "Just do the right thing. You guys know what the right thing is for the people of North Dakota. We take care of the policy, and the politics will take care of itself."
Just defying what people expected and just being yourself. That is just so refreshing, and that really, really resonates.
To moments of crisis.
As the water came across, about 75% of the city was flooded with water. But he was thinking ahead. How are we going to have money to operate the government? How do we finance the recovery? I mean, the moral support that he gave in just showing up and being there was just amazing and helpful.
To Medora.
The old saying is that there's no zealot like a convert. And Ed is that convert. Those of us who've known Ed for a long time have seen him go from someone who really regarded Medora as his father's hard to understand and unprofitable project to someone who is passionate about Medora.
He would challenge the board to think outside the box, think about 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. All along, he was always concerned that we don't lose the culture.
Everywhere he goes, he follows an uncomplicated mantra.
The other thing he would teach us, that he taught me, was solve the problem, Robert.
Years ago when he would go to his attorney's office, the doorknob was not working. Every time he'd go, the doorknob was not working right. So about 2 or 3 times at this, he took his toolbox along and fixed it because it needed to be done.
When he arrived, he brought his own desk with him and put it together himself. And, he was always quick to say, "Well, what can I do? Can I help?"
He doesn't like to be served. He likes to serve.
Because at the heart of Ed Schafer's way of leadership is character. And to lead with character is to make a true impact on people's lives.
You can tell a lot about a person by how he acts when nobody's watching, right? When there are no cameras rolling, especially as a politician. At the State of the State address one year, we were broadcasting it on TV, and about an hour or an hour and a half after it was over, I came here to this spot basically where all of our camera equipment was, and I was taking it down. There was nobody else in the hall at all, except there was one maintenance person or somebody who was doing some cleaning up or something right at the front up there. And Ed came walking in, just immediately started interacting with the gentleman who was working. "How's your wife? How are your kids? Now, isn't your son, is he going to college?" And he had this conversation for several minutes with him about his family and how they were doing. And I always remember thinking that if this is the real person, he's really a great person.
So in college, I had secured a White House internship opportunity through the help of former Governor Ed Schafer. He had helped put me in touch with some people, and in the end I decided to take a different opportunity and go live with my grandmother down in Sioux Falls and do a reporting internship instead, and I felt kind of sheepish about having to tell Governor Schafer that I wasn't going to take this opportunity that he had helped kind of pave the way for. When I sent him an email, he wrote me back, and he was so warm and he was so understanding and just kind. Too often we get trapped into doing something we think we have to do instead of being willing to do what makes us the happiest. While I'm sure the White House internship would have been fascinating, it is much more important to follow your heart, often a sign of God's direction. It'll be great to live with your grandmother, an experience you both will treasure, I'm sure. And I did.
Ed's a car guy, I'm a car guy. So we've been able to bond over our love of cars. I reached a point where I wanted to become more immersed in my Christian faith. I sent out an email, and I sent it to everyone in my entire address book because I was on fire. I wanted to share it. I got a response from Ed, and Ed said, "John, I'm going to pick you up on Monday night for a Bible study." So that's 14 years ago, and over that time, over the past 14 years, Ed and I have spent time visiting. We usually close down the sanctuary at the end of the Bible study visiting. And during that period, I've gotten married. I've had 3 children. And Ed has been there with me, praying for me and encouraging me in my faith. And honestly, the fact that he invited me to that Bible study 14 years ago changed my life.
He's a man of faith, a compassionate advisor, a family man, a leader of character, and we call him Ed.